My world shattered the moment I confessed to my husband on our 10th anniversary, and he replied, I know. I've been raising him. James and I, both 29 now, met in our freshman year of university. It wasn't a class, but at the campus library. I was drowning in organic chemistry notes, and he was a comm geology major who showed me how to find a quiet corner on the third floor near the antique map collection. We weren't looking for anything. He was shy and methodical, with a dry wit that took weeks to emerge. I was more outgoing, studying to be a nurse, always in a hurry. Our friendship grew slowly, over shared study sessions and terrible library coffee. We started spending more time together outside the library. Weekends hiking in the state parks near the university, where he'd point out rock formations and I'd name the wildflowers. It felt easy, genuine. We met each other's families during that first winter break. My family is loud, Italian, centered around my mom's kitchen in Chicago. My dad runs a small construction firm. My younger sister, Gina, is a whirlwind. They loved James immediately. My dad appreciated his quiet steadiness. My mom fed him until he couldn't move. James's family was different. He grew up in a quiet suburb of Boston. His father, Richard, was a retired financial advisor, stern and reserved. His mother, Eleanor, was a former pianist, elegant but with a nervous energy. James was an only child. Their house was pristine, museum-like, conversations hushed and proper. I felt like I was constantly worrying about leaving a water ring on the polished mahogany table. Eleanor was polite but distant, asking pointed questions about my career plans and family background. Richard mostly observed, offering brief comments. I could tell James was tense there, a version of himself that was smaller, quieter. It was during our sophomore year that James first told me about his cousin, Henry. Henry was 3 years older than James, the son of Eleanor's sister. The families were close, the cousins raised almost like brothers, but with fierce, unspoken competition always simmering. Henry was a golden child, captain of the lacrosse team, top of his class in an Ivy League school, effortlessly charming. James described him with a mix of admiration and deep-seated resentment. Henry had a way of subtly undermining James, of turning his achievements into footnotes. If James got A+, Henry would ask why it wasn't an A. If James finished a hike, Henry would mention the marathon he'd just run. He's just very driven, Eleanor would say, a note of clear approval in her voice that was never quite there for James's geological surveys or his quiet dedication. Richard would nod in agreement. It was clear who the favorite nephew was, and the comparison was a shadow over James's childhood. James and I fell in love in that slow, certain way. By the end of our junior year, we were inseparable. We got a small apartment together off campus. We talked about the future. He wanted to work in environmental conservation. I was aiming for pediatric nursing. We wanted a family, someday, but not until we were firmly on our feet. Life felt full of promise. Then, in the spring of our senior year, I got sick. Really sick. What I thought was stress from finals turned out to be a severe case of mononucleosis that knocked me out for weeks. James took care of me, missing classes, bringing me soup, reading to me. During that time, my period was late, but I attributed it to the illness, the stress, the medication. When I finally felt well enough to take a test, just to rule it out, the 2 pink lines appeared with stark, terrifying clarity. We were in shock. This wasn't the plan. We were about to graduate, about to start our careers. We had student debt. We sat on the floor of our bathroom, holding each other, crying, tears of fear, of panic, but also, beneath it all, a strange, burgeoning sense of wonder. It was our child. After the initial storm passed, we made a decision. We would make it work. We told our families. My family was surprised and ecstatic. My mother cried happy tears, immediately started planning. My dad clapped James on the back and said, "Welcome to the club, son." Gina was thrilled to be an aunt. Their unconditional support was a warm blanket. James's family's reaction was ice in contrast. Eleanor was silent for a full minute when James told them over a strained video call. Richard's face hardened. "This is incredibly irresponsible," he said. "Your futures, your careers. Have you thought this through at all?" Eleanor finally spoke, her voice clipped. "What will people say? You're not even married." The disapproval was a physical weight. But the worst was yet to come. Henry happened to be visiting his parents that weekend. He came into the frame, his handsome face smirking. "Wow, little cousin, didn't peg you for the shotgun wedding type," he joked, but his eyes were cold. "Guess some things are easier to get into than geology, huh?" James flushed deeply, his jaw tight. Henry's comment was the first barb of many. He began a campaign, subtle at first, then more direct, aimed at convincing us, primarily me, that we were making a catastrophic mistake. He'd called James, and I'd overhear. "Think about it, James. She'll have to put nursing on hold. You'll be stuck in some entry-level job forever. Is that the life you want? For the kid?" When he spoke to me, it was cloaked in faux concern. "Natalie, I just worry about you. You're so young. The statistics for couples who have kids this early, it's a strain. And a baby needs stability, a real home." He and his wife, Clara, had been trying to conceive for 2 years without success. Clara was a kind but fragile woman who adored Henry and seemed to live in his shadow. Henry started weaving that into his arguments. "Clara is heartbroken every month. She would give anything for a child. She could provide such a beautiful, stable home. A child should be a blessing, not a burden." The pressure from James's parents mounted. Eleanor started sending articles about the financial ruin of young parents. Richard offered to pay for the procedure if we acted quickly and sensibly. They painted a picture of us drowning in misery, failing our child before it was even born. James, whose entire life had been a quest for his parents' approval, began to waver. The confident man I loved started to recede, replaced by an anxious, doubtful boy. He'd have nightmares. He'd stare at our budget spreadsheet for hours, despairing. "What if they're right, Nat?" he'd ask me one night, his head in his hands. "What if I can't provide? What if I fail you both?" I'd hold him, reassure him, fury at his family boiling inside me. But the seeds of doubt were planted. The breaking point came at a family dinner at Richard and Eleanor's a few weeks later. Henry and Clara were there. It was an ambush. Over a painfully formal meal, the topic was broached not as a suggestion, but as a foregone conclusion. "We've been discussing it," Eleanor began, dabbing her mouth with a linen napkin. "And given the circumstances in Clara's situation, we believe the most logical, loving solution is clear." Henry took over, his voice smooth, reasonable. "Natalie, James, listen, you're facing an immense challenge. Clara and I have a 4-bedroom home in a top school district. I have my partnership at the firm. We have the resources, the stability, the readiness that you simply don't have right now. This isn't about taking something away. It's about giving your child the best possible start." Clara's eyes were wide, pleading. "I would love this baby with my whole heart," she whispered. "It would be our miracle." James was pale, staring at his plate. I was shaking with rage. "This is our baby," I said, my voice trembling. "Mine and James's. This isn't a logic puzzle. This is our child." Richard's voice cut like a knife. "Don't be selfish, Natalie. Think of the child. Sentimentality has no place here. Henry can offer security. What can you offer? A rented apartment and student loans." The pressure was relentless. They tag-teamed us for hours. They appealed to James's sense of duty, to my supposed desire for an unburdened career. They painted a picture of us gifting Clara her greatest happiness. They called it a private adoption within the family, making it sound noble, selfless. James finally cracked, exhausted, beaten down by a lifetime of seeking validation from these people. He looked at me with hollow eyes. Maybe they have a point, Nat. Just for a little while, until we get on our feet. I felt the world drop out from under me. That was the moment I knew I was alone. The fight went out of me. In a state of numb shock, surrounded by their relentless, cold logic, I gave a feeble, terrified nod. It wasn't consent. It was surrender. What followed was a nightmare. The pregnancy was co-opted. My appointments were scheduled around Clara's availability. She and Henry came to every ultrasound. Clara would coo over the images, calling the baby hers. Henry would pat my shoulder like I was a surrogate carrying his child. My family was told a twisted version, that I was high risk and under the care of a specialist near Boston, which explained my distance. I was too ashamed, too broken, to tell them the truth. James withdrew into a shell of guilt and shame, avoiding my eyes, throwing himself into finishing his degree. The due date approached. The plan, orchestrated by Henry and Eleanor, was for me to give birth at a private birthing center near their home. It will be calmer, more discreet, Eleanor said. Discreet, that was the word. I was to be erased from the narrative as quickly as possible. I went into labor 2 weeks early. It was chaotic. James was 3 hours away, defending his thesis. By the time he was reached, it was over. When he arrived, frantic, Henry met him in the waiting room. His face was a mask of somber regret. James, Natalie's fine. But the baby, there were complications. The cord, he was stillborn. I'm so sorry. James collapsed. The grief was atomic. He found me in a room, sedated, my eyes empty. He held me and we wept. Two shattered people mourning a son we never got a hold. They told us he had been taken for processing. There was no body to see, no certificate to hold. Henry handled everything. A pillar of grim efficiency in our storm of grief. We were too destroyed to question, to think. In the weeks that followed, Clara was devastated for us. She and Henry drifted away, saying they wanted to give us space to grieve. They moved shortly after for Henry's new job opportunity, cutting contact to a bare minimum. We were left in the ruins of our lives. Somehow we survived. The grief bonded us in a terrible, codependent way. We moved back to Chicago, near my family. We got jobs. James with an environmental nonprofit, me in a pediatric clinic. We married in a small, sad ceremony a year later, our happiness forever tinged with loss. We never tried for another child. The wound was too deep. Our marriage was a quiet, tender thing, built on shared pain and a love that felt forever scarred. We built a life, a good life by all outward measures, but the ghost of our son was a silent third occupant in our home. We marked the anniversary of his birth and death every year with a visit to a quiet lake, throwing flowers into the water. On our 10th wedding anniversary, we went back to that lake. It was a beautiful autumn day. James had been quiet, more so than usual. That night, back at the cozy we were staying at, he gave me a gift, a beautifully carved wooden box. Inside was not jewelry, but a small, worn stuffed elephant, the kind given to newborns in hospitals. I found it when I was going through some of my mother's things after my father passed last month. He said, his voice strange thick. It was in a box labeled, Henry's Things. But Henry doesn't have children. My heart began to pound, a sick, slow rhythm. What are you saying, James? He looked at me then, his eyes holding a decade of agony and a terrible, newfound knowledge. I started digging, Nat, after the funeral. Old emails, bank records my dad kept. Phone logs. He took a shuddering breath. Henry and Clara never moved for a job. They moved to Oregon with a newborn, a boy, born on the exact day we lost our son. The room spun. No, it's a coincidence, the cord, they said. There was no cord. There was a healthy baby boy. My mother arranged it all, paid off a midwife, forged death certificates. Henry pressured you, broke us down, but she executed it. She always thought Henry was superior, that his child would be superior, that we were unfit. His words were falling like stones. I hired a private investigator. He found them. In Portland, the boy's name is Daniel. I couldn't breathe. The lie, the years of grief, it all curved inside me, transforming into something monstrous. You knew? For a month? And you didn't tell me? I had to be sure. I needed proof for us, for the law. I was putting together. I was going to tell you tonight. He reached for me. I recoiled. The confession I had been mustering the courage for all day. A silly, guilty secret about maxing out a credit card on a surprise renovation for our home evaporated. A darker, more desperate truth took its place, fueled by a decade of repressed rage and a need to hurt him as I was hurting. I looked at my husband, the man who had failed to protect me, who had wavered when I needed him most, who had hidden this earth-shattering truth for weeks. You want a confession, James? My voice was a cold, sharp thing. Here's one. That night, after they told us our baby was dead, after you fell asleep clutching that empty blanket, Henry came to my room. I was drugged, lost, drowning. He said he was there to comfort me. It wasn't comfort. And I let it happen. I wanted to feel something, anything other than that hollow grief. Or maybe I wanted to punish you, punish myself, stain their perfect plan. Just once. And from that one time, I got pregnant again. 7 weeks later, I found out. James's face was a mask of horror. I continued, the words pouring out like poison. I was terrified, ashamed. I couldn't tell you. I couldn't face it. So I went to the one person I thought could make it disappear quietly. I went to your mother. I begged her for money, for help. She gave it to me. She was almost kind about it. She said it was for the best, to protect the family's reputation, to not burden you further. She set up the appointment. I told you I was visiting a sick friend for a weekend, and I ended it. I was sobbing now, gasping. I killed our second child, James, because I was a coward, and because your mother made it seem like cleaning up a mess. So you see, we're both monsters. Our marriage is built on graves and lies. The silence that followed was absolute, suffocating. James stared at me, and in his eyes, I saw our entire history. The love, the loss, the betrayal, crumble to ash. Then he spoke, his voice eerily calm, hollowed out. I know. I froze. What? About the pregnancy. About the termination. My mother, she kept a record of everything. A diary. Payments. She documented it all, like a business transaction. I read it. I know it was a boy, too. I've known for a month. He looked at the stuffed elephant in his hands. But you're wrong about one thing, Natalie. You didn't kill him. He lifted his gaze to mine, and what I saw there was beyond pain, beyond grief. It was a fathomless, chilling resolve. When you went to my mother, she saw another opportunity. Not for Henry this time. For herself. She'd lost a grandson in her mind to our incompetence. Here was another chance. She didn't give you money for a termination. She paid the clinic to sedate you, to tell you it was done, and to give the living, viable fetus, our son, to her. She had a private nurse, a secluded house. She raised him, Natalie, for the first year. Then, when the scandal she feared never materialized, When we were just quietly grieving, she assimilated him. She had a friend adopt him, a closed, private adoption. She kept tabs. She even saw him sometimes as a doting family friend. She raised our second son, our living son, and gave him away to strangers to complete the clean slate, to erase every trace of our mistake. I only found the final part of the trail last week. His name is Liam. He's 9 years old. He lives in Wisconsin with a family who loves him, and he has no idea. The world didn't just shatter this time. It vaporized. There were no screams left in me. There was nothing, just a silent, infinite void where my heart, my mind, my life had been. James stood up, placing the stuffed elephant carefully on the bed between us, a grotesque relic. I've already filed the papers to report the kidnapping, fraud, and illegal adoption of our first son, Daniel. The authorities in Oregon have been alerted. They're moving to secure him. My mother's diary is with my lawyer and the police. She's been arrested. Henry and Clara will be next. I've also initiated contact, through lawyers and child services, with Liam's adoptive family. They are devastated. They had no idea. They want to cooperate, to do what's right for him. He looked at me, not with love, not with hate, but with a final, exhausted detachment. I loved you for 20 years, through all of it, but this ocean of lies, I can't navigate it anymore. I won't. My fight now is for my sons, both of them, to get one back, and to know the other is safe and loved where he is. There is no us anymore, Natalie. There's just the truth and what we do next. He walked out of the room, out of the inn, out of our life. I sat on the floor, clutching the stuffed elephant, surrounded by the horrific ruins of a past I never truly knew. The grief I had carried for a decade was a phantom. The real tragedy was just beginning to unfold, and I was no longer a mourning mother, but a witness to a crime, a participant in a lie, and utterly, completely alone. The legal battles were long and brutal. Eleanor, facing a mountain of evidence, eventually pleaded guilty to multiple charges, including kidnapping, fraud, and illegal adoption in exchange for a slightly reduced sentence. She is in prison, her elegant facade finally shattered. Henry and Clara were charged as accomplices to coercion and fraud. Clara, it turned out, had been largely manipulated herself, believing the story that I was an unwilling young mother who had chosen them. She broke down during questioning. Their marriage did not survive the scandal. Henry, stripped of his partnership and his reputation, received a suspended sentence and community service, his golden life permanently tarnished. Richard, it was revealed, had suspected but chose willful ignorance to preserve the family standing. He died a few months after his arrest, a broken man. Daniel, our firstborn, was transitioned back to James's custody over a period of months, with intensive therapy for the 10-year-old boy who learned the people he called mom and dad were not his biological parents, and that his birth was shrouded in a criminal scheme. It was an agonizing adjustment, filled with anger, confusion, and deep hurt. James moved to Portland temporarily to facilitate the transition, dedicating himself wholly to his son. Liam, our second son, remained with his adoptive family in Wisconsin. The court, after extensive evaluation, determined that removing him from the only loving home he'd ever known at the age of 9 would be too traumatic. James fought this, but ultimately, seeing the bond Liam had with his parents and their genuine love and stability, he acquiesced. An open adoption agreement was formalized. James's regular, supervised visits and constant communication. Liam knows James is his biological father and that a great wrong was done, but he is surrounded by love and care. It is a painful compromise, but one made for the child's well-being. As for me, I face no criminal charges, but I live with a sentence of my own making. I divorced James quietly. He didn't contest it. I see Daniel occasionally, under the guidance of a child therapist. He is wary of me, and I don't blame him. I am a stranger who gave him away. With Liam, I have chosen, for now, to keep my distance. His family is open to contact when he is older and has more questions. My role, I have come to accept, may forever be that of shadow in their stories. I returned to Chicago, to my family. I told them everything. The betrayal in their eyes was a new kind of hell, but their love, though shaken, ultimately held. I am back in nursing, working in a grief counseling center. I am trying to atone by helping others navigate loss, even as I drown in a unique, complex loss of my own, the loss of my children, my marriage, and the woman I was before that dinner in Boston. James and I are not friends. We are co-plaintiffs in a lifelong tragedy, bound by the DNA of two boys and a mountain of grief that is no peak. He is a good father, focused and present for Daniel, and devoted from a distance to Liam. I am trying to learn how to live with the echoes of my choices and the monstrous machinations of others. Some truths don't set you free. They bury you alive. And you have to decide every day whether to struggle for air or let the weight of it finally crush you. I'm still struggling. For now, that has to be enough.